I love that.
I threw it together this morning because I forgot.
It's
I was like,
yeah,
oh, that's right. We're doing this today.
we're doing this. I
We're
love
doing
it. It's so good. It's perfect time and everything.
and it's quick.
Hmm.
Didn't mean like a big, long, drawn out one.
Yeah.
So this is our first recording,
Hmm.
and we are focusing on chronic illnesses and
Hmm.
sick kids and mental health and physical health and all the
Hmm.
things.
Hmm.
And I had asked you to come on today. You're always my first. You were my first for the last go round too. You were the first guest.
As I
So
should be. I think we've known each other. Well, we met on the app when we were all like down with the masks. And then
yeah,
that was years ago.
it doesn't seem like it's been that long that
I know.
this has all been going on. It's like this big blur now.
Hmm.
And now we're all kind of, doing our own things, but still doing the same things. And
Hmm.
so yeah, you had to be the first.
I'm here. I'm here for it. And this is something that I don't talk about. So this is almost kind of like an exclusive from my people. So if you want to
Mhm.
send me the recording
Yeah,
before so
absolutely.
I could send it to like my members, that would be awesome.
Yeah, no,
Because
I can
this is
definitely do
something
that.
I don't talk about at all,
Mhm.
ever. It's just not
I know
something.
I
I don't
was
know
I
why.
was very nervous about asking you,
Hmm.
because I know that you had talked about it a little bit a couple of
Hmm.
years ago. But
Hmm.
anybody who's kind of new to you may not know,
Hmm.
because it's not something that you talk about a lot anymore. But I think it's a good story. So
It is. We used it. I used it an awful lot when we were talking about the COVID mandates and the jabs and the masks, and because that was the
mm,
attack that we would get. It's like you need to think about the people who have chronic illnesses and
I
the
know.
people who are immunocompromised. And I'm like, bitch, I am immunocompromised. Think about me. I'm not gonna
Right.
wear your stupid mask. I'll stay home.
I'm not even
Dang.
doing it. Why are you?
Right. I've never worn a mask in any circumstance, in any situation. My immune system is in the toilet. Like, and
Mhm.
especially when I was on medication. I haven't been on medications for, well, 2 years, going on 2 years now. I quit all that and I
You
focus on
quit every
meditation. And
single one of them?
yeah, I'm done with all of them. I was on anxiety medications. I was on anxiety, or so I was on anxiety meds. I
Mhm.
was on my multiple sclerosis med, which is a low dose form of chemotherapy.
Mhm.
And then I was on like an antidepressant. I was on something to help me sleep, and then I had something to help me wake up and that was only if I needed it. And I was swollen and sick and moody and making decisions that I normally wouldn't have made. Um, and then I just quit. I think I went through some hypnotherapy sessions, started working on some trauma, started working through a lot of grief that I hadn't when it came to my old man passing,
Mhm.
as I never really grieved it. I just kind of sucks to be old and moved on. Like, but it was there. I just never dealt with it. And then realized that the medications that I was on was detrimentally affecting my health. And I started reading up a lot on multiple sclerosis and the foods that you eat,
Mhm.
multiple sclerosis and your stress levels, cold showers and inflammation. I started reading a lot about inflammation and the different foods that you eat and how starchy carbohydrates can affect a lot of that.
Huh.
Um, yeah, and I started to change that. It's different for everybody, but for me, like I could do like the little golden potatoes, a few of them, and
Mhm.
be fine. I cannot eat russet potatoes. I can't eat one because I will flare and swell, and my
I
back were
always use the
just
little the
terrible.
little golden ones because
I do
those
too.
ones I always just felt were better on my stomach. It didn't
Mhm.
feel as heavy in my stomach.
Correct. But they're more expensive. And so there's the trade off, right? Golden potatoes for a little tiny bag of these little tiny taters are
Mhm.
like 6, $7 here. But I can get a great big 12-pound bag of russets for
Yep.
$4. And so it became kind of that it's the trade off. And I think it ties in with everything else that's going on, right? McDonald's
Mhm.
is super cheap. You can get a great big meal at
It is.
McDonald's for $5.
Yep.
But if you want to go and eat something on a healthier side, it's going to cost you 8, 9, $10,
Yeah.
So that's where a lot of people struggle, I think, when it comes to eating healthy and the food stuff, and then even managing their own mental health and chronic health because it's fucking expensive.
It's
They'd
it's
rather
so
you be on meds.
expensive. I mean
Mhm.
I mean, we've tried it. My son is, the school's really on me about my little boy. That kid was born with ADHD, like textbook.
Mhm.
And it's much more than, he just doesn't sit still. It's difficult for him. There's a lot of emotions that go with it. He feels very guilty about it because he just can't regulate.
Mhm.
And then we have Elise, who also has Ehlers-Danlos syndrome like me, and she's on the autism spectrum.
Mhm.
So we did. I was like, you know what, we're gonna do the thing. And I remember looking at my husband in tears and being like, I can't afford
Can't
to
afford it.
do the thing for all of us. Like it would
Mhm.
be different if I was doing little meals for just her or just him,
Mhm.
but they make it to where if you have multiple children, it's just not happen. It's not happening. I mean, my
Mhm.
grocery bill, even with you know garbage food or unhealthy food, is skyrocketing now.
Mhm.
Everything has gone up in price.
Mhm.
But we did like a detox for both of them that we do every couple of months. It's supposed to remove like all the metals and things like that. And I've
Mhm.
noticed a difference in both of them that first like 3 weeks after the detox. And then like that last month, they're starting to get
Right.
those attitudes back and they're not sleeping good. And I feel like anytime that I took them to the doctors, like you were saying, it's a pill for this and then a pill for this.
Mhm.
You start off with one, you get your diagnosis, and then they're like, okay, we're going to put you on this pill. But
Mhm.
now this pill has made this problem and this problem and this problem happen. But we're
Mhm.
going to give you a pill for this problem, and this problem. Like when we first met, I was on meds that helped me went to bed, helped me wake up.
Mhm.
I was on the anti-anxiety ones. I think I was on, it was like over 20 pills a day
Yep.
at one point that I was taking every single day, and I still felt horrible.
Mhm.
I didn't have good days. I just had blah days and bad days. That was it.
Mhm.
And then I removed a lot of them from mine as well. And now the only thing that I take is on really bad days, I have pain meds that
Yep.
if it gets too bad, I can take one, I can go lay down, I can go to sleep for a few hours and go about my day.
Mhm.
And it's crazy because now I've put on 15 pounds. I'm happier. Because the problem was the pain, right? Like
Mhm.
that was my problem. So if you give me this get out of jail free card that I can just take when it gets really, really bad, that's enough for me. That's enough for
Mhm.
me to be happy. I don't need to be on something all day, every single day that's going to give me 15 other health problems
Mhm.
because I didn't have POTS when this whole thing started. I didn't have any issues with my heart rate. I didn't have any issues with fainting, nothing. And then
Mhm.
after being on all those meds for so long, I started fainting out of absolutely nowhere.
It
And now, even
activated
though
it.
I'm off of them, it's still a problem.
Mhm.
And then it's more pills. So when were
That's
when were you diagnosed?
all right. So my oldest was born in 2002. He was 3, 2003, 2004. So it had been 2005. And it was this, I remember it was the spring of 2005 because it was my birthday, around my birthday. And I remember being just devastated. I had dated a guy before this whose dad had multiple sclerosis,
Mm,
and his dad was in a bad way. Like couldn't in a wheelchair, couldn't go,
yeah.
just devastated. And I was really overweight then too. I was really unhealthy then too. I was drinking a lot. Like, and I wasn't in a good place then either. And they diagnosed me and then they told me that but it was going to be okay because they had newfangled medication, and it was at the time in 2002 was something called Avonex, and it was a needle about yay long, is because it's intermuscular. It has to go into your muscle in your leg, and they sent it to you in a cooler like through the mail, and then you had to do it once a week. And I've got a needle thing like that. I'm not afraid of anything, but don't come near me with your needles, right? But I had to do these my damn self. And I would do really good with them, but I would get really sick for about 2 days after taking them. So I would take my injection on a Friday. I'd be sick Saturday and Sunday, and then I would get up Monday and go to work. And this is how I went, probably for about a year. And it sucked. And I can remember one night I was doing my injection and I missed and I hit a blood vessel, not like a vein, but like a vessel, like a big, fat, juicy blood vessel in my leg. And it just and exploded. And there was blood everywhere. It looked like a murder scene. I was living with a roommate at the time. His name was Jake. He was a drag queen and he was at a drag show. And I called him because I was single and I'm crying. And I'm like, I don't know what the fuck to do. Like, I'm going to die. I think I'm going to die. And I called the non-emergency line and I'm like, this is what happened. And they're like, you're going to have to come in because you could have pushed air into that vein and you end up with some kind of thrombosis of some sort.
Yeah.
And I'm full fucking panic mode. Like, I'm going to die. This is great. So I go in and it was fine. They got it under control, but I stopped the medication after that. I was never very good on being consistent on my medications. I was so bad at it. And then I got a new neurologist because my old neurologist retired, and I got a new neurologist in Sioux Falls. She was terrible, but they put me on a pill. They were like, okay, it's fine. We have a new pill.
Okay.
So started taking the pill, and the pill started with a B, and it was blue. And I had to take it every day, and I would take it, and then my hair started to fall out. And my appetite plummeted to nothing, and I dropped to nothing weight. And my menstrual cycle got all fuckered up. And I got really, really sick. And my digestive system got really messed up. And I never fully recovered from that either. I eventually stopped taking that because I was like, this sucks. I'd rather just take my chances and roll the dice because MS is kind of a hit or miss. You could have one flare up and never have another one the rest of your life. Or you could have one flare up and then have another and another and another and then just continually sink. It just depends on your body. I think it depends on a lot of things. I read a lot of things where it depends on where you live. So it's about your environment. It depends on your stress level and how well you manage that. It depends on the food a lot of things that managing your MS is basically can be a natural thing. But I stopped taking that med. And then, as soon as I was off meds for quite a while after that. And I just didn't want to do it anymore. And finally, I'd gotten another neurologist here in town because I was in Sioux City because my other one was in Sioux Falls. And I was having seizures too at this point. I was still on them. I was taking the med before I stopped. I started having seizures out of nowhere. And so I go back to the neurologist in Sioux Falls. This is why I stopped taking it. Now I'm remembering. And I'm like, I'm having these seizures. And I was having these colodic seizures where you just kind of zone out, mid-sentence. And they were doing all the testing with the head. And they told me that my seizures were caused by the placement of the scarring that was caused by the multiple sclerosis. And this was something I was going to have to live with. They told me I was deteriorating. And that didn't make any sense to me at all because I had never had seizures up to that point. And when I looked at the scans that they took and the scans from the start, the lesions never got any bigger. They never got any smaller, but they never got any bigger. They never moved. I never got more. And so why did this just start now? And I would ask, and they would be like, it's just the way it is. And literally, and then I'm like, well, shit. And then they told me, they're like, you can't drive because you got to take this seizure. I'm like, you were telling me that this is basically it now. I'm disabled. And so I just stopped taking the med. And you know what? As a month after I stopped taking the med, the seizures and I was having like dementia, like I'd be walking and just forget where I was just randomly. It all stopped a month after stopping the medication. And I fucking dipped. I was just done. And by then I was done. I just was sick of it. I'd gotten a new neurologist. She was here in town. She was very nice. I still have her, kind of. Very nice. And she put me on another med called Tysabri, which is a monthly intravenous. You have to go to the hospital, have it intravenously done once a month. And I did good on that for about 9 months. My hair still fell out, in clumps. I still have bald spots. But then I was in really good shape too. I started running around this time and I started kind of paying more attention to what I ate. And I had gained a little bit of weight, but it stayed, consistent, healthy at a healthy weight. And I had done a mud run and it was great. And then I got bacterial meningitis just out of nowhere. I was at work. I got sick. Yeah. And I got a headache.
That's no joke.
I'm like, no, it's sure not. I didn't know what the fuck it was. I told my boss I got to go home. I'm just not feeling well. I got a migraine. I'm going to dip. So I dipped. I go home and Mr. Shipwreck was in the picture at this point. My middle child had already been born. And I go home and I'm sick. I'm just sick. And I go to bed and I wake up at like 11 and I'm vomiting and my head, it's the scariest thing. It's more painful than childbirth, the scariest thing that I have hands down to this day ever been through. And so I go to the ER and Mr. Shipwreck takes me to the ER and we're sitting there. And the doctor came in and was asking me a bunch of questions. And I'm like, he's like, on a scale of 1 to 10. I said, God, like a 15. I said, I'm dying. Something's wrong. Something is wrong. I don't know if it's a migraine. And he gave me some ibuprofen and he told me to manage my pain better and sent me home. He reeked of alcohol, tripped over my IV and pulled it out. My husband wasn't allowed in the room because it was contagious. Because they thought it was bacterial meningitis, but they did the scans, and at the time the scans didn't come back with anything. And I'm crying, and he's like, "Do you need me to go and get like the chaplain so you have somebody to talk to?" And they were treating me like I was a drug seeker. They were asking me, like, when's the last time you took any? Like, I took ibuprofen at, 8:00. I don't take anything. I don't, even now to this day, I don't take anything stronger than ibuprofen. I won't even take pain meds. And I never have. And I was so confused because I'm like, I've never been here before looking for pain meds. I came here and had my kids. I didn't even have pain meds after my kids. I had Tylenol. And he told me to manage my pain better. And he told me to suck it up and sent me home with a prescription for ibuprofen. And I go home about midnight, I think, or 11 midnight. And I'm home. We're home till about 3:00. And at 3:00, I woke Mr. Shipwreck up, and I'm hallucinating, and like I got blood crusted in my ear. I'm not doing well. And my brain is like, at the time, my brain was swelling, and the meningitis had gone. Then at that point, it was so far along that it showed up on a scan, because then we ended up going back after I'd begged him to take me back, because the doctor told him that I was just overreacting. And so he's like, the doctor didn't, and I don't blame my husband. I don't blame my husband, because that's what the doctor said. I get it. And I get it. I can be, I could be emotional, I guess, at times, but he took me back, and that there was a new ER doctor on at the time, and he took me right back. And he's like, look, I don't even need to do it. Yeah. I don't even need to do another scan. They did blood work, and he's like, it's full. It was all up my spine and into the base of my brain by this point, the infection. And I spent considerable time in the hospital, and then eventually was released. And then another couple months in outpatient, I got seen by a disease specialist, and they came up with one of two options. Either the infection came from doing the mud run. I had gotten a sinus infection, and they thought maybe it had spread to my brain and caused an infection. A bacterial infection in my brain, or it was from the medication, and that they didn't know at the time. She didn't know. She blew off my second appointment, so I never did find out. She just never showed up. I sat there for 2 hours, and she never showed up.
What?
I'm telling you, like, people come down on me for my bias on the medical, but damn. Okay.
No,
and then I found
I've had horror stories too.
Yeah.
And people are very shocked when you're like, I'm done with doctors. I'm
done.
done.
Yep. We are done.
They don't understand, because these are also people that have probably only been to the doctors, when they're not feeling good. They go to their primary care, they get checked out, they go home.
Yep. They go home with the heating pad,
Right.
But I sat there for 2 hours. She never showed up. And then 2 days after that, I seen her on the front of our newspaper. She was getting an award.
Oh.
So that was it.
Good for her.
And that was done. Well, and so then after that, I kept doing my appointments, kept taking the medicine, the once a month. And then I had started looking at some articles about Tysabri, and down at the bottom, I had noticed a side effect that I had not noticed in the beginning was bacterial meningitis. And nobody told me. It was not there in the beginning. I remember that because I remember looking at the side effects thinking, am I going to lose more hair? Like, that was not there, but it was there then. I'm like, fucking bet. I'm not doing this anymore. And I quit taking that. I told her name's Dr. Hartman. She is very nice. But I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore. Like, I'll take my chances. She convinced me then to go on one more. And I had been on a few pills and whatever. One more. She's like, just go on one more. So, and that's the one I just quit. And it was twice a year. You go in and you have this done, and it's intravenous. And it was fine. It really was. It was okay. It did cause a lot of mood. Like like my mental state deteriorated. I feel like maybe that because when I quit it, my mental state got better,
Mhm.
but it was fine. Um, until COVID hit and we were all locked down. And then I started really kind of looking and hearing other people's stories about this certain medication. And it scared the bejesus out of me. I'm like, I'm not doing this. Like one lady got a brain infection and was permanently disabled in her brain from this medication. So I called her and I said, you know what? I'm going to go holistic with this. I'm gonna go to therapy. I'm gonna work through my trauma. I'm gonna meditate. I'm gonna eat better. I'm gonna focus, and I'm not gonna do these medications anymore. And she pushed back. She still pushes back to this day. Um, but I think the real make or break for me is when I told her all this, and she's like, "Well, you're at least gonna get your COVID vaccine." And that was when the vaccines were just starting to roll out, and I had just finished reading a bunch of studies on how it tanks your immune system, and I'm like, my immune system already in the tank because of this medicine. You really want, done. I was done. Psh. I told her
Yeah.
so, and I said I want to go more holistic. She was really upset about it. Um, she came back with, I've just seen lots of people do this, and they really, really regret it, and I don't want you to. And I'm like, I don't think I'm going to regret it. We've been on this since 2003, and I'm done. And she wrote me down as non-compliant, which I thought was interesting. And they called me more
Non-compliant with your own body.
non-compliant. They called me more times after I decided to quit the medication than they've ever called me before.
Mhm.
They called me at least once a week for a couple months straight. Are you sure? Are you going to take anything? What are you going to do? Have you heard that? And she was not on board with. I had asked her. I said, "Is there any advice you can give? Is there any way you can send me that I can learn more about how to, manage this on a less big pharma stance and more of
Yeah.
a." She said no. I
Like
said okay.
not even like a referral to functional medicine, because that's
No.
kind of like the happy place
Yeah.
in the middle.
It's a
Is like,
mix combination of both. Mhm.
because my original doctor, before I fired him, because I was always really big on that online, where I'm like, just fire your doctor. But I
Mhm.
never took my own advice. I was and I felt like I always let myself get talked into taking
Mhm.
certain meds or doing tests that I knew I didn't need, where I'm like,
Right.
okay, because in my head, if I play nice with you, you're gonna play nice with me. Like
Mhm.
we're gonna form this relationship.
Mhm.
And I went into failure to thrive. And I'm like, I'm an adult with failure to thrive. There's no one else like me. And it's either 70, 80-year-old patients or babies. Can't find anybody that's middle aged with failure to thrive. I've done everything that you want me to do. You're not listening. And I fired him. And now with my new doctor, like he immediately with the functional medicine was like,
Mhm.
I think that you should go more functional medicine. And he's like, unfortunately, he said that in his opinion, sometimes with these illnesses that are deteriorating illnesses, well, if I tell you that you're going to deteriorate,
You're gonna
you're going
deteriorate.
to
That's
deteriorate.
just it. If I
If I
tell you,
tell you, you're going to
yes.
progressively get worse, because I mean, it's not the same illness that we have, but mine is known to be progressive. You will
Mhm.
deteriorate over time. But I
Mhm.
feel like since I've been going to this new doctor that doesn't talk to me like that, I mean, I've put on the weight. He
Mhm.
was like, why are you on all these different meds? I'm like, well, this one's for my stomach spasms, and this one's for my muscle spasms, and this one is for this, and this one is for this. And he's like, this is ridiculous.
Mhm.
This is way too much medication for you. No wonder you're in failure to thrive. What? And then it's, meds that will make me hungry, meds that will
Mhm.
suppress my appetite when I've gotten too hungry, because they had me on this medication where I was a bottomless pit. And I
Mhm.
was just constantly starving, and I was just binge eating and binge eating. And then I would get sick. It wasn't preventing me from getting sick. It was just making me so hungry that like I looked at Cody and I'm like, it's gonna give me an eating disorder. Like
Mhm.
I am becoming textbook bulimic because of this medication. I'm binging and then my body purges it. But to
Mhm.
them, well, you're eating and you've gained 2 pounds.
Yeah.
Right. But I have like burn holes in my esophagus. I'm losing my teeth now. Like you're not hearing me.
Mhm.
Well, with Ehlers-Danlos, as you progress, no, you don't get to do that.
No.
You don't get to do that, because I feel like you're doing that to make an excuse for what the medication has done to me.
Right.
Because now, like I said, I mean, I'm off all, like I'm definitely a big advocate for plant medicine, huge
Mhm.
advocate for that. It's legal in my state. And now, unfortunately, like I do have pain cycles that have been so horrific that they've put me in the emergency room. And when I go to the emergency room, they want to give you the strongest pain med that exists. They're like,
Yeah.
here's some Dilaudid. I'm like, are you insane? There
See,
are
that is so different here. We must have
at
pain
the
seekers
hospital
here.
by
Like,
my old house, they wouldn't even give me Tylenol. But then at this
no.
one, they give me too much. And I'm like, is there something in the middle? Can we? And I found that hospitals that are closer to the city, they are meaner to you. They will label you as a drug seeker right off the rip. They are super snooty to you. To where the
Mhm.
hospital out here that's in a more rural area, they're not like that to me here. They are very kind to me here. They take it very serious. Like I couldn't have gotten any luckier than the situation that I'm in now, you know, and I've had some digs on social media about my living situation, you know, but my kids are in amazing schools. The doctor that's by me is amazing. The hospital that I go to is amazing. They've removed a lot of unnecessary medications. You know, they're very open to meet in the middle. It's a relationship. It's not like where I feel like someone's telling me what to do. Like, well, you're the
Mhm.
doctor, so you know best.
Right.
And actually, I haven't even said this online or anything, but my last appointment, I myself got to remove failure to thrive from my medical record because I am no longer in failure to thrive because I'm
And
not
I
helping.
think
Wait,
that's half the problem too, is that
I also
because we
started
have the
going to
same thing
therapy
here.
and working on my
Therapy
garbage
is
and working on
because
my
it's up
trauma
here.
because it's
Because
sticking
it's up
in you.
here.
It's poisoning you. Your trauma will poison you.
Absolutely. And it 100% carries into anything that you've got physically going on.
Mhm.
I stopped owning the reason. So we talked about this a little bit backstage. I don't talk about this. And the reason that it's not content and the reason I don't talk about it is because when you talk about things, you put it out into the universe, right?
Mhm.
I don't have MS. I was diagnosed with a multiple sclerosis diagnosis, but I don't believe that I have MS. And I'm not in denial, but I don't feel it. And maybe I will tomorrow and I'll have to deal with that. But I'm
Mhm.
not going to stress about it because today I feel really good. And there are days where I don't feel the greatest. Like my biggest problem was like my left leg. I lost the use of my left leg at one point and was kind of rolling around, just dragging it. I didn't really, because I wouldn't use a walker. Nothing. I'm not going to do it. And so I would just kind of drag it.
Just
But
dragging a dead limb around. I can see
I,
that.
I did. But that was a long, but now like I can feel it twinge every now and again. And I can feel it get kind of weak. And when that happens, I go into meditation and I really focus on that leg. And I'm like, what, let's clean it out, clear it out, let it rest. I focus on like the, lowering the inflammation of that leg. And the power of your thought alone can I'm not going to say cure, but help you manage a lot of what's going on, because we live in a society that automatically thinks when you've got a bump or a headache, this is it. You WebMD that shit and you're like, oh my God, it's cancer. So then you go to the doctor and they're like, probably. And I'm not saying that it's never that, but more times, if I learned anything during COVID, people just go to the doctor. Like people are like, well, I had a scratch in my throat, so I went and got tested for COVID. Are you stupid? Why would you do that?
Oh, I know. When I'm at my doctor's appointments, I've heard people in the other room before where they're like, my lips have been tingling for like 3 days. You came to the doctor?
Are you serious? You came to the doctor for that?
We made a whole doctor's appointment. And it's so funny that, you say like, I don't have MS today, because that's what that Cody's been talking to me, where he's like, you don't have it today. Don't worry about it, because I'll freak out on good days where I'm like, oh, I should still bring my meds and I should still bring my cane just in case. And he's like, you don't need it.
You don't have it today.
You don't need it today. Today is a good day. Worry about tomorrow. And once I started kind of doing that, like I got in trouble at my last doctor's appointment because I wasn't out of meds. Like first it was, are you taking too many? Then it was, oh, well, you still have leftovers. Why do you have leftovers? Well, because when I feel the pain and I'm like, okay, like what's my pain score at? Can I take a bath? Can I walk around a little bit? Can I play a video game for an hour and just get my brain off of it? Because like me and meditation don't vibe. Like I just yell at myself the whole time. So I found like reading or coloring, or which is still,
but that is still a form of meditation. Everybody's meditation is different. I can't do group. You can't tell me how to meditate. Don't group me into a meditation.
No,
I'm
because
not going to do that. I have to go
can't
into
sit
my own.
there like all like, no, that's not
Mm-mm.
happening for me. I'm gonna sit there and think of all the things that I could be doing that I'm not doing. But if
Mhm.
I'm interested in something enough, to where my brain is kind of shut off and I'm like, oh, okay, well, it wasn't at an 8 while I was doing that. So it's not really at an 8. Because if you can distract yourself from it, then that's not a true number. The number might be higher because you're over constantly. If you're like, oh, my knee
Mhm. You're
hurts,
over focused on it.
then your knee's gonna hurt. And now,
Mhm.
I've gotten to a point where I can get myself like to like a 9, 8,
Mhm.
9 before I'm like, okay, I did all the things and it's that, and then I feel like a failure. And I'm like, it didn't
Mhm.
work. It didn't work. And it's like, well, it's not gonna work every time. It's
Right.
okay that once in a while I gotta just take something and go lay down. But I don't ever want to I feel like they in a video that you did today, like it did start really making me think about it. Like when you had talked about like the maid service and things like that.
Mhm.
But my thing was, I feel like I agree with you on like definitely like what side they're going after. And that's just very sickening to even imagine. But I still feel like anybody with anybody that they consider weak,
Mhm.
anybody.
That's it.
I mean, if it's
It's
a physical illness, mental illness,
mhm.
if it's just your will, if your will is weak, like if you were one of the first ones to line up and be like, I don't know what it is, but give it to me. I don't know what it
Right.
is, but just go ahead and, inject
It's
it.
fear. It's fear. They scared
Then,
people into doing
yeah,
this.
but they want
That's
to keep you sick. They like, they love, like, do you know how much money I'm worth? Like
uh-huh.
into the testing that they can give us. And I remember telling my doctor, like very point blank, I was like, I know how much money my illness is worth. I do. All the scans, all the testing, all the shiny new meds. Like, they were like, their big thing now is like gabapentin and Lyrica. Like that's
Mhm.
like, we got to put everybody on it. And like I'm not against those meds. My daughter is on Lyrica for her nerve. She has nerve damage from her surgery when she had brain surgery. So that nerve flares up, and I mean, she will go into screaming, uncontrollable pain. And you can't talk a 10-year-old down. You
Right.
can't. Like, we go today to hopefully start weaning her off of it, and we're looking at getting her a second surgery, unfortunately. But I don't want her taking Lyrica every day either for the rest of her life. I mean, she's 10.
Right.
But they were really pushing like gabapentin and Lyrica on me to take every single day. And I was so confused by it because I had told the doctor, I said, I don't have nerve pain. Why are
Right.
you trying to put me on a medication for nerve pain? And he's like, well, there's a Fexer. I'm like, that's a mood stabilizer. Why are you? Well, we don't want to put you on opiates. Why? Well, they're addictive. So is every other medication that you're going to put me on. I'm going to become dependent on whatever
Right.
med is making me feel better. So if I can take something once a week, if I get myself in a bad spot, isn't that better than me taking something multiple times a day for the rest of my life? What is that going to give me? And I caved and I was like, okay, I'll try gabapentin. And I sat by my fish tank. I had a fish tank at the time and hallucinated for 4.5 hours straight. We're convinced that my fish and me could have conversations through our brains. And
Yeah.
I was sitting there talking to my fish for 4 hours. I tell the doctor this when they want to put my daughter on it. Well, it doesn't mean that she's going to have the same reaction.
God, it's just
But
it's
you know
like
what? She went into full blown psychosis in my living room for 3 hours. And I was like, call
it's
the hospital. What do I do with her? Well, you can bring her in. I go, yeah, but what are you going to do? You're going to strap her down to a bed. You're going to knock her out. She's going to get white coat syndrome, which I don't blame her. I have it. I'm scared of hospitals 9 times
mhm.
out of 10. I don't want to go. And so we just kept her here, turned all the lights down, turned the fireplace on, tried to distract her from, bad hallucinations versus good, kept in contact with the ER staff.
Jesus.
And it eventually, I wound up finding a YouTube image of like the brain all lit up, with all the fancy colors, and sat there and just lied to her for an hour about what the brain was doing. I'm like, this is your brain. The doctor just sent it to me. And she's like, what? I'm like, it's just very busy right now, but see how it's slowing down? And she's like, yeah, mom, I can feel it slowing
Yeah.
down, and I got her to a point where she truly believed that she was watching her own brain. And then she fell asleep. And I was like, okay, we're good. She woke up the next morning. She, thank God, does not remember any of it. But I mean, this is like one of the sweetest children in the world. And this girl was sitting in a corner spitting at me, swearing at me. You're trying to kill me. Why do you keep making me take this medicine? I don't want to take this medicine. Why are you trying to kill me? And it's like to know what it's like as an adult to go through that is one thing, but to watch a 10-year-old go through it, it's just a special kind of hell.
Yeah.
And I told them, you know, like, I had this happen to me. Why wouldn't it happen to her? We both have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. She's my biological daughter. You would think that the risk alone would be too high to put her on it. Nope, they went right ahead. Now,
and they don't care.
Lyrica works great for her. Her appetite is normal. Her sleep is normal. She doesn't have any weird side effects. I worry about long-term damage because I don't know what it's doing inside of her little body. So we're gonna, you know, she told me, she's like, I want to talk to the doctor. I want to go off my meds. You know, they do make me feel a little weird. And I was like, you need to tell her that. Like, I try to instill that in her where I'm like, you have to tell the doctor. You do, not me. Like, I'm your mom. I'm not you. I'm not in your body. You have to tell them, and you have to tell them bluntly. And she's like, well, I hope that she'll let me. And I'm like, oh, no. That's not how this works. If you want to be off of it and you give me and that doctor valid reasons in that appointment on why, I will fight for you to come off of it. I will fight to wean you off of it to see what happens. And she's like, that's all I'm asking for. I'm just asking, can we try to come off and see what happens? Because I mean, she's been on this now since summer.
See, and that's just it. But all of this, and that was a lot of the pushback that I got when I went off medications. They're like, yeah, but I know the side effects are kind of hard to tolerate, but you're not relapsing.
That's
Bitch, this is my everyday life. Right. Like just like your 10-year-old, she lost a whole night because of a medication that she's on. And they just, and it's not even.
Because we're not people. We're
numbers.
They don't, even the doctor that I have now, I love him. I do. I think that I am the most listened to that I've ever been. But I specifically went in for pain management. I said, there are days that I can't get myself through this. It is not fair to my husband. It is not fair to my children. I need something that I can take once in a while when it gets too bad. Well, let's put you on this all day. No, because you know what? I've gone through psychosis. I've had my hair fall out. I've lost 100 pounds. You guys have destroyed me with temporary side effects that are going to go away in a couple weeks once you get used to it.
Once you get used to it.
I would rather just deal with a level 10 pain one night with no meds. Like, if you're not going to give me with the meds that I'm asking for, that's fine. But I'm also not taking the ones that you want.
Right.
You will give me what I want, or we're not doing anything. And if you want to label me a drug seeker, yeah, I guess I am seeking them because I need something. But I don't want to be taking something every damn day. That I'm going to go into what? Kidney failure? I'm going to go into psychosis? Like, I have to mom, and they don't see that part. Like, I have to go to the grocery store. I have to pick my kids up from school. I have to help with homework. I cannot do that if I'm going through psychosis.
Right.
And then you hear these horror stories about these women going through, like, God forbid you put me on something to help me. And then what happens if I go completely insane? What happens if I go into total, utter psychosis? I hurt myself. I hurt somebody else. You hear of this happening. And I'm prone to it. I'm prone to going into these psychosis episodes with these medicines. And you offer me a Fexer? You see this on my medical chart that I've gone into psychosis 3 different times from medications that you've given me for pain.
Right. Well, and that's what, like, when I got meningitis, one of the biggest concerns that they have, and they have on all multiple sclerosis medications, is something called the JVC virus. And the JVC virus is a virus that infects your brain, and it's fatal. It's straight fatal. And so when I went into the ER, I didn't think about this, right? But they have my chart. It's the same hospital that I was going to for all of my stuff. I don't go to that hospital anymore, too. Just a side note, I go to the other one now. But that's the same one. They have my chart. They know that I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. They know what medications I'm on. They had to know, and they didn't think about that. They didn't think, Jesus, what if this is the JVC virus? Like, because that's exactly what it looks like. It's the worst headache you've had in your life. It's a stiff neck and it's vomiting. that is, and you are dead within 6 hours. Like there's no, and there's nothing you can do. But they didn't. They just, he said, the whole, and I know that not all doctors are bad. I got a lot. We had a really good family doctor. He doesn't live here anymore, but he helped me through a lot of stuff, and listened to me and helped me get therapy and he helped me go a different route other than medications. But the majority of the doctors that I have had experiences with were not good. They just weren't. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it for the sake of societal standards, right? Just because you're a doctor and you went to medical school doesn't mean that you're good at your job. It just means that I have literally seen doctors Google things. Like it just means that
they Google mine all the time.
You can Google things that I can fucking Google, right?
They have done it in front of me. You have what? I'm like, it's called Ehlers-Danlos. How do you spell it?
Yep.
You're a doctor. You're a doctor. You could have at least checked my chart, saw it, and Googled it in the hallway. No, you're gonna Google it right in front of me. I feel super confident now.
Yeah, I'm all done. We don't go, and my kids don't go to the doctor either. Like I got really sick. I stopped this about 2 years ago. I just don't go to the doctor anymore. I got really sick in Iowa City. I'm pretty sure it was COVID, or it would have been Omicron at the time. I'm pretty sure it was probably the worst flu that I had in a long time. But I just stayed in my hotel room, and then I came home, and then I slept for a few days a night. And it was a month or so before I really started feeling normal again. But I didn't go to the doctor. I ran a fever. I was sicker than shit, but I didn't go to the doctor. My kids don't go to the doctor.
I'm a doctor from mine. I got so dehydrated.
Well,
every time I stood up, I'd pass out, stand up, pass out. And finally Cody was like, get in the damn car. And I was like,
we're going.
COVID. I'm fine. Like I don't have a cough. I didn't have a cough. I had like a super high fever and a really, really bad headache that like I couldn't even think straight. But I got a lot of like the weird mental health side effects that they don't talk about, like the depression, the anxiety, the intrusive thoughts that I don't have on a regular basis.
I have that all the time. So maybe I have that too. I just never noticed.
It was way worse on COVID. When I was on the COVID, it was way worse.
I think that.
I
go
just
ahead.
wanted to get hydrated. Because they were like, well, we can give you XYZ. And I was like, I don't need the meds. I'm just really dehydrated. And I also, I have the POTS. So like when I get dehydrated, now I'm just fainting every 10 minutes and it's becoming inconvenient for my life. Like every time, it was every time I got up. Like, I think I went down 11 times that day. And finally he was like, get in the damn car. And then I didn't after I left. Like I just needed to be rehydrated and get all my electrolytes and balanced. And then I just slept it off the rest of the way. But even with my son, when he had COVID, they were like, well, let's start him on. And I'm like, he's 9.
Right.
He was only, I think he was sick for 24 hours.
Yeah. But I think that's where the preventative, this whole thing started like early in the early 2000s. They really started to push preventative medicine, right? So preventative treatment, preventative care, finding cancer before it becomes cancer. It became this whole, and I think the preventative aspect of it really took people to a different extreme, right? Because now everybody's a hypochondriac. Like everybody is going to the doctor for everything. And the doctors are allowing it to happen because they get paid. And that's how it goes. But if you could stop for 5 seconds and just think, you know what? It's probably just a cold. It's probably just, I probably don't need to go to because what happens is you go to the doctor and then they give you medicine and then the medicine has a side and you snowball. And that's with anything, right? Like when I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, the reason that because I was in that same mentality, the reason that I even got diagnosed in the first place is because I had made 3 different trips to doctors because I was having problems seeing out of my right eye. And it was all like my peripheral vision was gone. I couldn't see out of my eye. And I was panicked. Like, oh my God. Like I looked into some of the side effects of anxiety and stress, which can also cause you to not be able to use your peripheral vision very well. I probably wouldn't have gone to the doctor in the first place, which means I probably would have never got diagnosed, which means I probably would have never had to be on any of those medications, which means I very well possibly could be still sitting here today and have no idea because MS, it does that. Like you get one little flare and it could never flare again. Now I have not had any new lesions or new scarring since my very first appointment, regardless of being on medications or not being on medications. It hasn't mattered. And so I could have avoided all of that trauma if I had just took 5 minutes to recognize that my own anxiety was causing me to freak out, because then I ended up going
You
to
would
an
have gone to go look the
right.
way that it's set up. The way that it's set up, though, you Google like headache, and
Mhm.
it's gonna show you brain tumors.
Right.
You
Well,
know,
that's
like
what happened.
always
Eventually,
the worst case
I
scenario.
I went to an eye doctor because they thought maybe, there was fluid in the back of my cornea. And they're like, "Well, you're gonna have to go to a specialist," because they thought it was a brain tumor on my stem. And that's what they told me at 3 o'clock on a Tuesday afternoon. They're like, "It's a brain tumor." Like, the fuck out of here. No, it's not. And they're like, "Oh, it's a brain tumor. We're pretty confident. You're gonna have to go to a neurologist." I just thought that would be more like
Walking around thinking
climatic.
you had a brain tumor, but
Yeah.
you didn't.
I cried then too, because then I'm like, "Well, how big?" And they're like, "Well, we don't know." Okay. They sent me to a specialist, and then she's like, "It's not a brain tumor. This is a classic sign of multiple sclerosis, and this is what we think you have." And I was like, "Okay." And I was so bought in. I took all the meds, and I'm just, you know what? I stopped all of that, and I stopped worrying about like every little thing that came up. And I don't know, I feel better than I have in the last 10 years, like 15 years, pretty much since I
I think there's
started.
also just like this obsession with living forever.
I don't want to live
Like,
forever.
like I feel like
Maybe
that's
that's it. Maybe I just don't want to live forever. I
and
don't
it's a
care.
fear. It's a fear. There's a fear of death. It's
Mhm.
and I think that that's driving a lot of this. Is this? Well, I don't want to die.
I don't want
Well,
to die.
well,
If you get over your fear of
we're all
death,
gonna die, guy. Like no one's
yeah.
getting out of this alive. I don't know if you guys like didn't get the memo, but we're
Mhm.
all gonna go at some point. And I've just decided that while I'm here, I don't want to be doped up on every
I
single
don't either.
medication that you've decided
Nope.
to come out with to make you richer, me sicker, and then you get to go and win an award. While
Yeah,
I'm
and
sitting
not
on my
show up to my
talking to
doctor's
my
appointment.
fish while I'm
You
talking to my
cunt.
fish for 5 hours. Like that's what you're doing.
Well, and that's just like it's all driven by fear. Big pharma feeds on the fear of people. The commercials and are you feeling like saw the White House, what they put out about COVID, right? That was all intended to scare you into going to the doctor, to scaring you into getting your vaccine bay. It's all about fear. And once you release that fear, you can just kind of it's over. You don't it's not that I don't want to die, but I'm
Yeah.
not afraid to die.
Yep.
I was afraid of what comes after you die, like, because people don't
Mhm.
know. And I think that people are afraid of the unknown. But in going through a lot of the healing process and learning more about the universe and really kind of strengthening my relationship with God and prayer and meditation, I hope it's not drawn out. I don't want my kids to see me sick.
Right.
I've kind of come to terms with, like, if I ever got cancer, if it wasn't 100% guaranteed that the cancer would be gone forever, I don't know that I'd do any kind of chemo. And I can't say that now because obviously I don't know, but I
Right.
kind of thought about that. Like, I think I would just live my last days in good health and make
Mhm.
good memories and then just call it a day. We were
I'm
talking about MAID.
quality over quantity kind of girl.
Quality over, yeah. Like, and I'm not afraid to move on to that next level, whatever that next level is, even
Mhm.
if it's nothing, right? It can't be nothing. There's too much
No.
going on for it to be nothing. It's got to be
When
something.
your brain can't even comprehend nothing. When you think nothing,
Mhm.
you think black. Well, black is a color and that's something. You think of a black, no lit room when you think nothing.
Mhm.
That's still something.
Mhm. I think that if people could get over their fear of dying and death, a lot of things would change, right? They just don't want to die. And it really doesn't. I follow a lot of death accounts on TikTok, a lot of morticians, because the
Mhm.
whole ideology behind it's very interesting to me, what
It
they
is.
do and why they do it. It's an interesting thing. And I'm not afraid to die. I don't want my children to die, but I am not afraid of what's going to happen to them after they're dead. Like,
Right.
you know what I'm saying? Like, that would be the one thing I could take peace in. I would miss, obviously, you should never have to
Mhm.
bury your child, but if it were to happen, I could take peace in that. I know that something would be waiting for them on the other
Yes.
side. And that something is way better than anything they could get here.
Yep.
Um, I believe that everybody's here for a purpose. And we were talking about the MAID stuff backstage. Now, Canada just rolled
Mhm.
out this whole bill, where if you are struggling with your mental health or you are struggling with your life situation, being homeless or whatever, you can go in and request maid service. And maid service is a service that they offer you that compassionately helps you leave the planet assistedly. I am not against the ideology behind maid service. I'm not against it. I do feel like it's a compassion thing. You see people
Mhm.
for a year go through chemo and there's nothing. They're miserable and they're in pain. Just end it.
Right.
End it. We would do it for a
Right.
dog. Just
Yes.
end it.
Yes.
But to have for
When you
maid
are
service,
terminal and you are almost there and you can't get there and you're just living in
right.
agony and there's nothing left to you, I,
Yep.
I get
End
it.
it.
I get it.
Be done. But if you're 19 years old and you are having a bad spout in life, because it happens, and you go
Yeah.
in and say, I just don't want, and to offer somebody like that maid service, and we were talking, like we both even said, there were times, and there's even a time not that long ago
Mhm.
that I probably would have gone in and taken it
Yep.
and been like, I'm finished. This is when I was going through my awakening, and I realized that none of this actually matters. Because
Mhm.
then it becomes about finding your purpose. When you realize that nothing happening around you matters at all, and if you don't have a purpose to focus on, or you don't know what your purpose is, boy, that's a real dark ass place to be.
Mhm.
And so I would have gone in, but now I'm better. Now I don't want to be dead. I wanted to be dead then, but I don't want to be dead now. So
Right.
where do we draw the line? Like, how much help do we offer people before we immediately go to this extreme step?
See,
And
that's
in
my question.
Canada,
It's like
it's not.
how quick is the yes? Like, is
Yeah,
there a wait period? Like, do they have to wait X amount of days before they kind of make sure that they're sure? Are they
I don't know.
doing psych evaluations? Are they doing interviews? Are they talking to them? Or is this just I requested it, I meet the things, and that's it?
I don't know. So and that's another thing. So Canada's gotten really strict with its information. I can't really find a whole lot on it other than the big scary headlines that are meant to trigger people into
Right.
anger, right? So I don't know the logistics of it. I might have to, maybe I'll make a TikTok and ask. But
Yeah,
from
because
what
I
I
would be
have seen,
interested to know, like, if I was just 20, right? I'm 20
mhm,
years old, I'm homeless, me and mom don't get along, I've got severe
mhm,
anxiety, maybe I've got a drug problem because now I'm homeless on the streets. Can I walk in and request maid service? Well, we know that the answer is yes, but what are the
right.
steps? What do I have to do in order to get the maid service? Or is this because to me, like if there's nothing, if there's no form of intervention and you're just like that's murder because
That's
you
the
are
way I
taking
see
their
it.
that's murder. Like this is not they're not dying. They're not no.
Mhm.
No.
They're getting rid of the undesirables. Unfortunately, a lot of the TikToks that I have seen from the people in Canada say exactly that. It's you go in, you make the request, you have to meet certain criteria, and if you do, it's your decision. You don't have to go through any kind of extensive therapy, you don't have to go through any kind of extensive psychotherapy. You just can't. And boy, I got a problem with that because I like I said, I would
Big
have,
problem with that.
you know, never underestimate the hole that your lack of presence would leave if you weren't there. Like,
Mhm.
we'll see. But on the other side of it, I don't, even if it's a child, like if your child's got childhood cancer, they're gonna die. Like it's inevitable. And
Yes.
it gets to that point to where they just can't stand it. You can't stand to watch them go through it anymore. To be in a setting that's comforting and compassionate to allow them to cross over on their terms, I'm on board with that. I am not on board with mentally angst teenagers thinking that because they got broken up with, this is the end of their life and then ending their life.
Well, I saw that like
Um,
borderline personality disorder is on there and I'm like, "Whoa, hold
BPD,
on."
yep.
I was like, BPD is literally caused by trauma.
Mhm.
That's what
That you
causes
can work through and fix
you
it.
can you can fix this. There
Mhm,
is DBT therapy. I have said that 100 times over. It is the
mhm,
best form of therapy for someone with BPD. I have taken it like I think like 7 times now. I do maintenance once a year. I go back through it. It's like a 6-week course. You just got to
mhm.
retrain your brain. Somebody
Yep,
broke your brain a long time ago. Wasn't your fault. You got to retrain that brain. And sometimes it gets lazy and it falls back into it. And you got to
mhm,
wake it back up and say, hey, remember, we're not doing this anymore and retrain
mhm.
again. So you're
Yep,
telling me that this 20-year-old, this 18-year-old who has borderline from trauma,
mhm.
you're not going to give her the tools to him or her to the tools to work through it. but you'll help them,
You'll
the
help them
long
make the
neck.
plan. This is part of the call. And I know I made the TikTok and I know, but the when it comes to like the chronically ill, right? That all started. How many chronically ill people were known about in like the 60s? Maybe
Not
even
as
the 50s.
many, and now it's a trend. It's
That's a
cool.
trend.
Like when I found out that I had Ehlers-Danlos, I had never heard of it. I had
Yeah.
never ever heard of it until my daughter was diagnosed because she had the Chiari, and they did the brain surgery, and they were like, this is caused from Ehlers-Danlos or biological father. Okay.
Nope, I'm losing you. Oh, are we better? Nope, you're still frozen. Still frozen. Well, we can edit that part out.
You kind of edit that part out because it's like,
there you go.
Okay, it's back.
You're back now.
Dang it!
You're
I was
back
hoping
now.
I could post an episode without editing.
That's all right.
Shoot, now I forgot what I was saying.
The Ehlers-Danlos.
Never heard of it.
Yeah,
never heard of it. And then once I was diagnosed and I started talking about it, now all of a sudden I'm on Ehlers-Danlos TikTok, and it's like millions of people, but this is supposed to be like a rare thing.
Yeah.
So I'm very confused how all of these people have it, but this was an unheard of thing the whole time. Now it's an algorithm, so it's going to attract me to people. But I'd even asked my doctor, and he said that he sees an uptick in requests to be diagnosed with Ehlers-Danlos, but
that's just it.
Not in actual diagnoses.
Yep. It's like a PTSD.
To be sick.
Yep. Everybody, I have PTSD from this. No, you don't.
Oh,
I'm sorry, you don't. You don't have PTSD from that. You might have a bad memory.
On that, I think it was today, where just because you're quirky,
Lord,
doesn't mean you're autistic. Just because you're hyper and you can't focus doesn't mean you have ADHD.
Mean you're ADHD,
personality.
Right? Yeah, that's
there's personality traits.
We're so in love with labels, right? Everything needs a label, and I just refuse to participate in that on the political side of things and on the like the chronically ill side of things. This is why I don't put it out there and I don't talk about it, because I don't claim it. That's another big thing. Like, it's not content for me because I'm not going to claim it. I am not multiple sclerosis, and multiple sclerosis is not me. It is something that I was diagnosed with, and now I'm kind of questioning if I ever really had it to begin with.
Right.
Because there is
not at all, correct? Like you don't have any new symptoms, or
there are so many things that can cause lesions on your brain, like Lyme disease, which also can cause lots of problems, which is also managed through your food and through your stress levels, which so I don't put it out there, and it's not content for me. I know it was in the beginning. I would use it quite often for clapbacks, but now, because if you constantly are putting it out there and you're constant, and this is why I worry about with you, if you want to do these series, and I'm 100% okay with that, I'm here for it. But if you are constantly talking about it, constantly putting it out there, and constantly involving yourself in it, is it going to get worse? Is it going to get
better? You don't see as many videos of my doctor's appointments anymore. Like, I was very big into it. I was like, I want to vlog all of it so that people don't feel alone who also have this.
That's a double-edged sword.
I was like, but now, like, I'm living it. I'm living it all day, every day. And it's all that I'm talking about, and it's all that I'm doing. And then on top of that, like, am I causing a part of the problem of people requesting the diagnosis? Like, am I becoming a part of the problem of glamorizing an illness or trending an illness? Because I don't want to do that. So like, I'm trying to find like this middle area, but it's difficult. It's difficult.
It's hard. I couldn't do it. I just quit.
Be a part of it being trendy, like I've met people throughout this that are like, yeah, no, I think I have what you have. And I'm like, okay, well, here's the help I can give you. If you want to go this route, this is how I went about it. This is how I was diagnosed, and they found out. And then I started discovering that like some of them seemed like very disappointed. Like I would get messages back and they're like, my doctor said this doctor said I don't have it. well, then you probably don't.
You probably don't have it.
Like
Count your blessings.
Yeah, it's a very easy thing. Like, I mean, they do a very easy, it's not a blood test. Like it's a hypermobile test. They do it in the office. If you don't meet the criteria, then you don't have it. You're just a little bendy. You know, you're not hypermobile. You don't have this umbrella. And that's a good thing, isn't it? But like they would seem almost upset.
Mm-hmm. Like
And
they
I'm
like it makes them special. And I see that a lot in chronically ill people. Like they
and I
become
don't
and they use it as a crutch for anything, right? And that's another thing that I absolutely refuse to do. If I am feeling run down or tired, I am just feeling run down or tired. It's not fatigue from MS. I am just run down and I'm tired. And as soon as I stopped blaming that kind of stuff on multiple sclerosis, eventually that kind of stuff stopped happening, which I thought was really interesting, right? And as soon as I started listening, like, you know what? I'm feeling a little run down. I think I'm going to lay down for 20 minutes. And so I do. And then eventually got less and less and less. A lot of people like to use their chronic illness. Like, and I'm not dismissing the seriousness of it, but it's like, it's not who you are. It's just something you got. Like, there's got to be more to you.
You're just tired, you know? Like, there's times where I'm like, oh, I got a headache. I need to go lay down. I just have a headache. I'm just tired. I didn't sleep well the night before. When you blame every single thing that you feel on what you've been diagnosed with, then it becomes a part of the symptoms that you're now telling your doctor, which may not be symptoms that you're having because of it. It's because you're stuck in your own damn head. So it's almost like you really can't blame the doctors on one end if it's becoming so trendy that everyone's just mixing their symptoms together to go to the doctor. That's probably why a lot of us get labeled drug seekers and the rest of it. So it's like, but then at the same time, I'm a part of the problem because I don't want to make it look glamorous.
Right.
But never in a million years do I want anything for it, or do I want to, like, I'm still quite capable of doing everything just about that I was able to do before. And if I can't do it one day, I can, you know, do it the next day. Are you kidding me? What is happening with this stream? It's
the weather.
Weird. Well, we're to the hour mark anyways. So if you want to close us out with something, something positive to end it with, and then I'll just edit the ever living out of this thing over the next couple of days.
Sure. Listen, we are not the target. I know that people are triggered by the things that the left does and says, and they're loud and they're in your face and they're crude and they're crass and they hate you, and they really do, probably. Okay. But the next time that happens, remember that we're not the target. They actually are in the end of this, because they're the ones that are not going to survive to see the end of this, whatever the end of it looks like, whether that's because of the jabs or because their generation is just going to die out. And once you start looking at it through that light, it starts to become a little more easier to be compassionate. I'm not saying we need to buy into the establishment, but understand that those people are under attack, and I just don't think they realize it so much yet.
Well, I mean, I honestly didn't see it until you broke it down the way that you did, and I was like, whoa. And like,
I'm not about us,
and I'm not okay with it. I'm still not okay with it. It's not okay either which way.
It's not. Agreed.
Well, thank you.
Kenneth, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you for being willing to sit and chit chat with me about it and all that stuff, and bring your badassery over to the show. And we appreciate you. Thank you.
Absolutely. I appreciate you too. You guys take care. Whoever's listening.
Right, guys. Yeah, whoever's watching this. Until next time. It's very weird without comments.
It is. Till next time. All right. Bye, guys.
Bye. It's not ending now.